Bienvenido. Welcome. Sucio Talk, episode 9. Welcome all of you to the show today. Today I'm sitting down with my good friend Andrew DeAngelo, who's a co-founder of Harborside Dispensary. During his time there, he was the global cannabis strategic advisor and consultant for them. He's also co-founded a few other projects, California Cannabis Industry Association, where he is a member of the board there, and then he is also co-founder of Last Prisoner Project, which is a project started for drug law reform for all those individuals that were incarcerated back in the day or up to currently for misdemeanor possession crimes of marijuana. So lots to talk about on the show. I hope you guys enjoy it. A couple updates for me. I'm no longer at the Charter Oak restaurant. I left there this past Monday to pursue some other endeavors, kind of build up this podcast, take some time for myself, see some family. It's been a hard year, and I appreciate everyone that I worked with, keeping their calm and cool and just understanding that we were all in this together, dealing with COVID and going to go and pivoting to certain things that you didn't really want to do. You know, nobody got into the business of being a chef to do to-go food, but our jobs is to feed people. Our jobs is to make sure we have jobs for people, and that was one of the only ways that we could do that. So we very happily pivoted to that, put our pride aside, and made sure that we put the same love and respect into the to-go food that we did into the food that was being served at the restaurant. And I think I speak for all chefs when they say that, when I say that doing food to go and trying to achieve that same message that you do at the restaurant is a very challenging thing. And I think that the chefs of our world have done an amazing job in doing so. Just some of the pictures I see online of people getting, takeout bento boxes and sushi and, from these loved places. It's a beautiful spreads, and it makes you feel like you're at the restaurant even though, you're in your home. But, this year has also given us time to kind of slow down and kind of think about things and think about why we're doing things and where we're headed in our careers and our lives. So owing to this year, I kind of made the decision to step away from the Charter Oak, and I had given, Chef Christopher 7.5 years of my life. I don't regret any of it. I learned so much. I grew as a human being, not only as a cook or a chef. I became a leader. When you first start cooking, you don't really ever call yourself a chef. You feel weird when people call you chef. But I think that Charter Oak gave me the confidence to know that I am a chef and I can lead a team and I can run a restaurant properly with high standards and amazing food. So thank you again to Chef Christopher Costow, Chef Katiana Weiner, Chef John Hong, Charlie Apple, Jacqueline Dasha, Tom Ferdinand, Jan, Iskandar, Mohammed, everyone there. I'm sure I'm missing people. Allie and Mac, who are on the line over there. Max, what's up? Catherine, who had just left us. These are all cooks that worked with me for quite a while, doing to-go food in this new model. So I applaud, their being able to put their personal goals aside and just know that we had to put our heads down and burrow right through the waves and get through this storm. And, there's no telling where we're going to be from now to 6 months, but I hope everything will get better, and I will definitely make sure that this podcast is a beacon of positivity in a world that sometimes can be overly negative. All right? So I leave you with that. I'll catch you guys next week on Monday. So please enjoy this episode 9 of Sucio Talk. I can't believe it's been 9 episodes already. Oh, and a quick shout out to the people of India. I seem to have a following over there. So thank you very much for making this show have a little bit of international flair. All right. There's a couple other countries too, but it's only like 1% of the listeners. So I guess I'll wait a little bit longer to shout them out. All right. So everybody have a good day out there. This is Andrew DeAngelo, badass motherfucker. All right. Please enjoy.
Then Rodney King happened, and the Gulf War happened, and everything was pretty fucked up as always. And grad school was way too sober and straight, for me. Mm-hmm. I thought I could create a lot of positive change as an actor, but unless you're Jack Nicholson, you're just not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be Jack Nicholson. I didn't have the family connections. I was in San Francisco. It was probably a mistake to go to theater school. I probably should have stayed in L.A. and just worked my agent. But I loved the theater. I loved performing. So, and then I had the opportunity to go back east and join my brother. And that's when we started working together after I got out of school. So
cool. All right. So I think we'll stop right there because I don't want to have you repeat everything. You know what I'm saying? So it feels like, yeah. All right. So I'm gonna get a little loud here. I hope
it's fine.
All right. Here we go. Welcome to episode 8 of Sucio Talk. I always fuck that up. The last time I was like episode 5, and it's like episode 6. So I gotta make sure that I'm good here. I'm sitting here with Andrew DeAngelo, who throughout his life has done a plethora of things. I don't even want to put a title on it. Let's just say Renaissance man and philanthropist. So we're gonna get into his life and career, and really excited to get to know you a little better. I think I met you about, what was it, 5 years ago at the restaurant in Meadowood?
Yep.
You had come in for dinner with your wife. We knew who you were because, we do our research. And I was like, I got to do this kitchen tour. I got to meet this guy. And I met you, and I made sure that I mentioned that I loved Harborside and all that. And we made a connection there. And then later on, I saw you at a couple Cannabis cups. And I was able to get your contact information. And we've sort of been conversing ever since,
That's right. Yeah, no, that was a wonderful meal. That was our first dinner at Meadowood. We had a couple after that you also...
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But that was our first one, and it was also our first experience with a vertically integrated restaurant that had its own garden, where almost everything you served was out of your garden. So that was... And then when we got invited to go back, we're foodies. Of course, most cannabis people are. And we were just really excited to be able to do that kitchen tour. So and then, we said all the right code words to each other.
Exactly.
It's been fun to be able to have a friend and colleague at the highest levels of the food industry. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for that. Thank you for sure. And then we had a meal at the Charter Oak once.
Yep.
Once a long time ago when restaurants were open.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we sat at the bar with the outside bar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was lovely.
Beautiful seat. But anyway, let's get into you. Let's get into early Andrew DeAngelo.
Sure.
Where are you from?
Well, I come from, my family was serving in the Peace Corps, so I was born overseas in India, but we grew up, most of my life I grew up in Washington, D.C., suburbs outside of Washington, D.C.
Cool. Peace Corps-wise, both your parents were in the Peace Corps?
My father was a director in the Peace Corps, so he wasn't a volunteer. He was one of the bosses.
Okay.
And he worked for the federal government for a long time. That's hence how we got into D.C. My parents are actually from Philadelphia, but my dad's work at the federal government brought us to D.C.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gotcha. And then your formative years were there? How long did you stay there?
Until I went to college.
All right.
And then I got as far away from home as I could.
What'd you do in high school for jobs and all that?
Well, before I got turned on to cannabis, I was an athlete in high school.
Okay.
And I played tennis, and I wanted to be the next Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe in those days were the idols that I grew up with. And so I taught tennis, to little kids. And a guy I trained with owned a restaurant, an Italian restaurant called Coco's.
Okay.
And his name was Greg Coco, and he owned this restaurant, and there was also a bar and a disco in it. And so he would give me jobs. He gave me a part-time job over there, so I'd teach tennis, go over there on the weekends, and work at the restaurant. And then when I got turned on to cannabis, my older brother was already in the cannabis trade, and so he fronted me some weed, pretty much the day after I started smoking weed. And I started selling weed to my friends in high school. I took an acting class in high school right at the end just to meet girls, really.
Yeah.
And I had an elective. Sometimes you have an elective when you're a senior. So I was like, well, a lot of freaky, cool-looking girls and guys, too, really cool people over there. Well, let me hang out with these artists. And of course, they all became my customers for the cannabis. So those are my first jobs in high school.
Very cool. That's a good array of jobs right there. And then you went to college. What'd you major in?
Well, I tried to be an actor, so I majored. In those days, the school I went to, I got a scholarship to this little school called Chapman University in Southern California. And in those days, it was a really little school called Chapman College. And I was lucky enough to get a partial scholarship. But I also took a pound of weed out there with me.
Okay.
And so I sold weed in the dorms. That was one of my jobs. And then I also, when I was in college in the 80s, the way you got financial aid it was you had work study. So
okay.
You would work at the college, and in exchange for working at the college would get a grant, and you'd use the money you'd get paid to pay your tuition.
Okay.
So I worked mostly in the technical theater because that's what my major was. So they let me work building sets and painting the sets and repairing all the different repairs and all. This campus had a few different theaters on it, and we would do all the repairs on them. And yeah, those are and in the summers I worked at movie theaters, in the concession stand.
That's awesome.
Until they took pity on me and moved me into the office. And
during what time? What movies were coming out when you were working
Oh,
there?
goodness. The very first Transformers movie that was ever made came out in 86, 87, something like that.
Really? I don't even know about that.
Yeah, and it was a big deal. It was a cartoon.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, it was a cartoon. The animation wasn't as high tech and digital in those days.
CGI.
Yeah, there's no CGI in those days. So that was one. There's this this weird Gene Wilder comedy called Happy Honeymoon that I had to work really hard. There were some big blockbusters, you know. Oh, God, I forget. Those were like the E.T. years, I think. So, you know.
A lot of hits, a lot of classics, right?
Yeah, because it was an AMC movie chain is where I worked at.
Okay, all right. So
you know, and there would be like 6 different screens, and you know, you worked the concession stand, which is the worst job in the world, right? One of them, and just
got yelled at all night by people.
And just the cleanup was the hardest. The cleanup was just a nightmare.
You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday about that. It's like when we would go to the movie theater, I've had this uncle who was like, "Leave the trash." Like, that's somebody's job to pick that up.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Are you sure?" He'd be like, "Yeah, just leave it there." It's like, you know, they pay.
Oh, that was the job everybody wanted on the shift was to go clean the movie theater, not clean the popcorn or God forbid, the oil, the popcorn butter.
Oh man.
Oh man, that took for hours every night cleaning that thing. So yeah, but you learn a lot about, different things that way, and as I shared with you a minute ago, I didn't come from a wealthy family, so you had to work, you had to have jobs.
And then what? So you go to college now. Are you just acting at this time, or are you also selling the weed? And also, I'm curious about this pound of weed. How did you bring it?
Wow. Well, in those days, most of the weed we were trading on the East Coast was brick weed that came in from Mexico or Jamaica. Sometimes we would get what we call pillow weed, a little fluffier, a little not pressed as hard. Call them pillows or bales. Sometimes we call them. And that was a little bit higher quality usually.
How much was that back in the day? For a pound?
It was somewhere between. For a pound, it was like $800 to $1,200 a pound in those days. Even, yep, I was getting quarter pounds from my brother for $300.
Okay,
and I was happy to get it.
For sure.
And so the price, the prices have not changed all that much over 40 years, or 37 years, which is a testament to the traders for keeping the supply at a steady price, and the quality's gone up, a lot since then.
For sure.
But I remember very distinctly that first load I took across country because it was Jamaican, and it was pressed really hard, and it was really strong. But it was ugly. It was ugly. It was brownish kind of weed, and it was that old big bud Jamaican that's been pressed. It's super sticky, and it has that real danky, tropical, moist, borderline moldy thing going on it, and it was really strong though. And I remember not knowing it, I took it because it was compact and it was easy. I had to roll it up in my clothes with some wrapping on it to avoid smell. And in those days there were no dogs in the airport. This is 25 years before 9/11 happened. You could basically, every once in a while they might X-ray something or randomly search something, but you could pretty much, as long as your bag didn't smell like weed, you could pretty much check some weed through. And either that or I got very lucky. One of those two things happened, and I got the pound of weed through. And of course, that was the most valuable thing I had. And when you're 18, you go off to college, you have like some clothes. You have like a few cassette tapes or a little bit of music, right, that you assembled in your young life up to that point. You have maybe some books and school supplies that parents and relatives have given you. But when you go 3,000 miles to college like I did, you're traveling light, man. And so I was really glad that the weed got through, of course, because that would have been a terrible way to begin. Say goodbye to my father and then get busted a few hours later. But that didn't happen. My problem was the California kids didn't understand that weed at all.
Yeah.
Because they weren't used to brick weed like that. They were
used to this beautiful weed out here.
Yeah, they were getting buds grown in California, and they weren't pressed, and so they thought, "What are you doing to us?" Right? And so I had to sell all that really, really cheap to a lot of frat boys and other people who didn't know the difference, and then very quickly, that's the
what the hell is that?
That's the It's a test. It's a test.
This is only a test, people. We are not under attack. This is the Oakland Hills here. We are not under attack.
This is the fire evacuation alarm.
It's all good. I hope there's no fire.
No.
This is the first podcast outdoors, though, so thank you I like this. think we're gonna do more like this. Does this just keep going? Does it just get
No,
louder?
it'll stop in a second.
This is just. I'm just gonna play the podcast right on through this, baby. People out there are just gonna have to handle it.
Well,
It's a beautiful
there's
noise.
nothing like life.
Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen that? Right? It sounds like that Silent Hill.
Wow, it's going a little bit longer than it usually does. No, it always happens at noon on the first
Monday, of
like
the month.
Tuesday of the month or
Tuesday of the
something.
month.
And
It's not too bad.
well, it's
people.
working very well.
Yeah. If there was a fire, you would know to leave.
Yeah, I think it's fire. It's probably any disaster that requires an alarm.
Is it going longer because there could possibly be a fire?
No, it's too wet. There's no way there's a fire.
Alrighty.
But it is going long. Let me text my girl here.
That's
She's
all-
on next door.
Just turn your radios down for a little bit, people. We're gonna get through this.
This is so 2020.
Yeah, right.
This supposed to
You'd think we'd be in 2020.
We're in 2021. This is supposed to be happening.
Shit is following us. Following us.
All right, let's check.
Check the local news. See if there might be a fire.
We're
All right, the alarm is over after about 7.5 minutes. Okay, we're back to the podcast. Where were we?
I think I'm in college still.
You got a pound of weed and you're in college.
Yes. So I very quickly had to find some local connections to score weed from, and that was a process in and of itself. But I managed to do it, and then I was able to purchase, things that were more appropriate for the tastes of my clientele in California.
For sure. Did you find a difference in price, or was it all the same?
It was remarkably consistent. Of course, the weed was a lot better.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it was about the same price.
Okay.
See? So I remember, the quarter pound the pound I got from my brother was probably $950 because I got a little discount. But the first quarter pound I got in California was $300.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember very well because I was scoring from this particular source for a while, and then the guy got in trouble with hard drugs or something, and he had to go to rehab, and I lost that connection.
Ooh.
And then the price went up to $700 a quarter pound because I couldn't find the right source. So I remember very well. My memory is very strong because the price went up, and then I had a really hard time finding anything for less than $500 after that. Not because it wasn't available, but because I was a new kid in California. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know. And it was 1980s. It was like the way you learned if people smoked weed was you had little codes with each other.
Yeah,
and, you'd see what each other listened to or wore, or little things, and eventually you just go up to someone and say, hey, you want to go smoke a joint? You'd have to take a risk and just...
Exactly.
And they might say, no, I'm going to report you.
Yeah.
Or they might, usually they say, I'm so glad you asked.
Okay.
And
That's
so,
crazy.
The process of doing that many hundreds and thousands of times in college, eventually I worked my way up to some folks. But I never... While I was in college anyway, I never was able to really meet. I didn't have my brother out here, I did on the East Coast. So I didn't have that connection. I'd make do. In those days, that's the way it worked.
Yeah, that's crazy. So did you act any acting jobs, or did you land any acting jobs at all?
Yes.
During your time?
Yes, I was
What did you do?
I was very fortunate. I got my first professional paid television acting job while I was still in college.
Okay.
And it was on a television program called Superior Court.
Okay.
And it's one of these Judge Judy type courtroom reenactments. Of course, they casted me as the young fellow who went crazy and killed the girl. No, the girl's grandmother.
So these are fictional cases, sort of Judge Judy style, because
they're loosely based on real cases, they claim, but they were pretty sensational and tabloid-like. And so I played this young kid who basically went crazy and killed this lady.
Do you remember your name? Did you have a name? Your character?
Oh man!
Or was it like killer number one?
No, it was just like David Johnson or something. it was very, because in those shows they don't reveal who actually did it to the very end. So there's always one character that you think did it.
Okay, yeah.
So they always make the character you think did it more stereotypically bad than the character that really did it. So I was like this quiet, reserved guy until they get me in the stand on the very end, and then I go crazy and I confess to the whole thing.
Jesus.
And that was my very first, and it was a petrifying experience because I was 19 years old and I had to go on this big Hollywood set. And
were there actors that you knew there? Or
no, nobody. I knew nobody. My agent, I had an agent because she'd seen me in a play that I was in college, and she, the industry's always been young. So
yeah.
I was in that age, that perfect casting age where there's a lot of parts. So it was petrifying. I remember I at the very end when I was on the witness stand acting, I had this speech I had to give. I blanked on my line. And I had to stop, and they had to stop, and they stopped everything, and then the lady comes out with the book, and she shoves it in my face, and that's your line. She points at me and goes, oh, yeah, I'm really sorry. And, you can't do that a second time or you're, like, fired on the spot, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. If you do that again, you're fired. I mean, or you might be able to finish that day, but you're never working on that with those people again, ever.
Damn, son.
And so the pressure was on. Luckily, I didn't blank, and I did a okay job. Yeah, and then in the summertime, I would do summer stock plays and Shakespeare festivals when I was in college and stuff like that. Yeah, and then I did some professional plays more than I did film and television. When I went to the acting school up here, that's when I started doing more.
Yeah, where was that?
Independent film, San Francisco.
Okay, got you.
So, so that's when the whole DIY independent film thing started breaking out really hard in the early 90s. And so, what I would do is I'd sell enough weed to have enough money to do a little play at a tiny little theater in the ghetto of the Mission or something. Yeah. And I'd do a little 50-seat theater, and I'd do a play for a few weeks, and then, I'd be broke. And I'd have to go sell some weed for, a year or two, and then, I have enough money. Now I can go do a little independent film. I'd put a little independent film together, and it was a very DIY time. I was young, and no one was going to give me opportunity, to create.
Take it.
Yeah, you had to take it. So that's what.
Gotcha.
That's how. And then, of course, I did a lot of work when I was in school studying. You do all kinds of plays.
Yeah, what's acting school like? So is it just like repetitive, or is there?
Well, all day long you do ballet and voice classes and yoga, and you strengthen your body and voice. And then at night, in the afternoon, you go to rehearsal, and that night you perform.
Is everyone required to sing at acting school?
You have to take singing. Yeah.
Like even if you're like, I'm not good at singing.
Yeah, that was me, and I had to do it. Yep.
Damn.
It's like law school or any grad school. It's like culinary school.
Yeah.
You have to take the knife. You have to take, the sauces.
Dining room. Yeah.
You have to take, if you don't want to do front of house, you still have to learn front of house.
Exactly. Wow.
And I didn't want to be if you're not a song and dance man by the time you're in grad school, you're never going to be a song and dance man. You're just not. Yeah, that's something you got to do when you're a kid, a little kid, to get really good at it at the professional level.
Yeah.
But you can be an actor, or you can be a personality. And again, I was more interested in social change. I wanted to tell meaningful stories. I wanted to move people to behave and act differently and create change in the world. And
what were some of those first changes that you wanted to create?
Well, we always wanted to legalize weed, you know.
Yeah.
So all my projects had weed in them.
Yeah.
We were really scared of nuclear war and the Cold War. And
Yeah.
So we had a lot of statements about that, and of course a lot of us were LGBTQ, and there was a lot of mission and statement about that, and just counterculture revolutionary shit, man. I mean, this is my brother's more the hippie generation, the boomer generation. I'm Generation X, and there's some of us in Generation X, not a lot of us, unfortunately, but some of us were trying to build on the activism of the boomers and the hippies and the punks and the freaks and the hip-hop artists and what was happening, in the 70s and 80s. We were trying to build on that. Unfortunately, a big part of my generation was trying to just make money and be a bunch of selfish pricks, but we, there were a lot of us that were trying to do something more meaningful. So that's how I carried on. And then, when I was done with grad school, that's when I learned that acting, the American theater and the American film and television industry just wasn't quite, was a little bit too sober a place for me, for someone who was advocating for cannabis the way I was. And it was really hard for me to find a spot, in that world, in those worlds. So I went back home, and I joined my brother, and I took care of my mom was sick at that time, so I helped take care of my mom, and that's when I fully committed to the cannabis trail. I didn't know it at the time that I was fully committed to the cannabis trail, so I was still doing independent film here or there. I got to be on a couple more TV programs that shot on the East Coast, and I was on The Wire.
Oh, you were?
I was on.
What did you do?
I ended up on the cutting room floor of the pilot of The Wire, and I was also on Homicide: Life on the Street. Both those shows shot in Baltimore.
The cutting room floor.
I was edited out. I had a small part in the pilot that was just 2-3 lines. And
Damn.
They ended up cutting it out. So
if they didn't cut it out, your life would have been so different.
Well, I was good friends with the casting director, but shortly after that I moved to L.A.
Okay.
So I got out of D.C. shortly after that, and shortly after that we opened Harborside. In between those two things, my brother got busted, and that was a whole nother endurance test for all of us. But I was sort of moving away from. I still had to dream, being the next, I guess, Jack Nicholson. But I increasingly understood it was not as realistic a path for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So
when did the light go off and you said, I'm doing this cannabis thing 100%?
Well, my brother got busted, and then that was a disaster. And
how did that happen? If you don't.
Well, he stayed on the East Coast. I came to California. The idea was we would move to California, and we were going to shut down. We had both a legal hemp company in D.C. at that time. We also had a robust wholesale business.
Yeah.
And,
was that up and down 95?
It was all over, man. It was all over. But and so I came out here first. I went down to L.A. We were working on some creative projects. My brother and I together were trying to write a movie. Yeah. And 3 months after I got out here, he got popped with a really bad one.
Yeah.
And some good friends of ours were involved in it also, and some really bad things occurred with the whole case, and the whole people lost their lives,
and for sure.
And so we had to endure that, and I couldn't sell weed for a few years. I had to go. I taught. I went and I taught. I eventually got a job as a professor at my alma mater, Chapman, and I did a little bit of work at the American Film Institute. And I just grinded out enough money teaching. Every once in a while I'd sell a little bit of weed, but not a lot. And I just had to lay really low because we were hot. And my brother had a legal case, and, I had to... My parents were traumatized by all this, and they had to leverage their homes to bail my brother out and to fight the legal case. So I had to make sure I didn't get busted.
Yeah.
And I had to just deal with that. So once we emerged from all of that, the Harborside opportunity was the next thing we did.
How many years was that endurance test there?
About 5.
5, got you. And now, did you have plans to open a dispensary in California, or did you just sort of fall upon that?
We always wanted to have legal cannabis businesses. We always wanted to sell cannabis.
Yeah.
We were cannabis traders.
Okay.
So we traded cannabis. We had a hemp clothing company. We made clothes out of hemp in the 90s in D.C.
Was that a successful business?
For a time, it was,
yeah.
We had over $1 million of sales at one time. What happened was the Chinese hemp in the late 90s really took the bottom out of the market, and we didn't want to sell Chinese hemp. So
exactly.
So we pivoted to California. And shortly after that is when my brother got busted, and I pivoted to California. But you couldn't get a license to open a dispensary until 05, 06.
Gotcha.
So
when did you open Harborside?
And after the bust, we had to have a license.
Yeah.
We had to have 06. October 3rd, 2006.
06.
So is when we opened Harborside.
Gotcha. How you doing? Man, 06 Harborside, and then what were the original goals and plans for Harborside? Opening, and what did you look to do?
Well, I think the way you and your listeners might be able to relate to it most is it's like opening a restaurant, and you're always trying to create something new and different that people haven't experienced before, that hopefully is unique and elevates the experience. Now, in the world of restaurants have been around a long time, and there's been many brilliant chefs and business models and empires, and the challenge of doing that is different than in 06 with medical cannabis dispensaries. At that time, there were really only 2 kinds of dispensaries. One were run by activists, super well-intentioned people, but didn't create such a great business experience.
Yeah.
And then you had gangsters who basically were running weed out the back door, and there's all this bulletproof glass, and it wasn't a good experience either, And so we tried to create something that was different than those 2 models.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't want any bars on the windows. We didn't want any bulletproof glass. We got insurance. We built really great vaults. We had all kinds of cash and inventory protocols that, our shrink rate was less than 1% the first 2 or 3 years we were open, which is remarkable. And you develop a culture of trust, and you make sure people have what they're taken care of, so that they don't steal from you.
Yeah, for sure.
So all those things make a difference, and we also had free health care services we gave because we were a nonprofit. You had to be a nonprofit in those days by law.
Yeah.
we were very transparent with everything, and people would come to Harborside, get cannabis. They'd come take a yoga class or a Reiki class.
Yeah.
They'd come write a letter to a prisoner and get free weed for doing that. They'd come to a free grow class, grow your own. They could buy clones. They could buy seeds. So it was really more of a community center we were trying to build, not just a quote-unquote dispensary.
Yeah.
And we're always trying to build community. I think that's what restaurants do too.
Of course, yeah.
One of the tragedies of this pandemic, and I'm sure you've discussed it ad nauseum on your podcast, is just these community centers known as restaurants and cafes and coffee shops just got totally obliterated with very little help.
Yeah.
From the public resources that should be there to support our community centers. And it's the same thing, with dispensaries. We got lucky. We were considered essential services, but we got no relief, no PP loans, no financial relief, no anything. And it was really hard. And so we tried to build. That's the original vision with Harborside. And I'm happy to report it worked. The vision came true. It exceeded our vision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's nuts. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys had a reality TV show?
Yeah.
At the dispensary? I didn't know anything about this, and I did a little research, and I was like, Weed Wars.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, around, by 2008, 2009, we were seeing 1,000 people a day at our Oakland shop, and by then we had a second shop in San Jose.
Okay.
And my brother was the only cannabis leader. We were the only cannabis company at that time, and my brother the only leader of a cannabis company at that time that was willing to let
everyone in.
Let the media in.
Okay.
Because people are too scared that they get busted by the feds if they appeared on TV.
Had you been busted by the feds up until that time? Before Weed Wars? Or raided or anything?
No, we had not, but lots of other folks had been.
Okay.
And we were, of course, worried about that. We did get hit after Weed Wars, but before Weed Wars, we did not. And
so when you opened up and were transparent, that's when they went after you.
Well, the TV show pissed them off.
Okay.
So the TV show really pissed them off because what the good part, whenever you do a reality TV show, there's good things and there's not so good things. The good things was we were able to show the world that you could have a cannabis dispensary, community center. It could be a force of good in the town for the people coming in, and you could heal your very sick folks, and you could build something positive. Mm-hmm. Because everybody thought that a weed dispensary was a bad thing, in Kansas and Indiana and Texas and Florida and even New York and Massachusetts. It was all illegal. Even Colorado was illegal then. Or maybe not for medical. But California was still the only place at that time. So the Hollywood people got very interested. They read some of our media that Steve had done, and they reached out to us and said, you want to do a reality TV show? We think we can sell it to a major network or cable provider. And so we talked about it for a long time. We had a lot of robust debates. I was eager to do it just because I had a background in acting and theater, and, it was a chance for me to bring these two things together very nicely. My brother was eager to do it because, we're telling the story of cannabis is what we do. Yeah. So, but we had to convince our team. We had to convince our families. It's a very evasive thing to do we had cameras following us around every day for a year.
Was anybody upset with that? Was anybody like,
sure.
I don't want to do that? Yeah. Do you have people probably leave their employment or their position?
Oh, no. The people that had a harder time with it were people that were very close to Steve and I that were shy to be on camera.
Okay.
They're
like, why are you doing this to me?
Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
And so that was the hardest part. Our staff was pretty stoked.
Yeah, I would be too. Hell yeah, bro.
Our staff was like, oh, you want me to be on TV?
Yeah,
sure.
Why not? Did anybody get any success out of that show, that other than you guys, or any spin-offs or any like?
Not that I'm aware of, but social media started being launched at that time, and so people did, benefit that way. I think.
Okay.
And more importantly, they got a lot of people who work for us had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that was not just a thrilling thing, but it really aided their development as employees, as leaders in their own right. So whenever you have an opportunity for your team to do something like that, if you can get everyone to agree, or enough people to agree, or you just do it anyway because you decide as the owner or leader, it's really healthy for people, to step out of their comfort zones a little bit and to rise to challenges. I'm sure this happens in kitchens every day, all over the place, but that's what makes your team strong and resilient. Because 6 months after the TV show aired, the federal government did try to shut us down.
Yeah,
and what
were their reasons for that? After letting you operate for so many years, why all of a sudden, and how all of a sudden?
Well, their reasons were, it was very curious, because the woman who was the federal district attorney of Northern California at that time was a woman named Melinda Haig. And her reasoning was, you haven't violated state law at all. We can't find anything wrong with what you're doing. You're just too big. You're too big an operation.
They want to stunt your growth.
And we have to shut you down because anything that big has got to be breaking some kind of rule or law.
Yeah.
We just haven't found any that you actually are. So it was a very curious way to come after us. They didn't bust our door down and take all our weed or march us off in handcuffs. They gave us a forfeiture action. So they tried to take the building away from us that we were operating in. We didn't own the building. They were trying to take it away from the landlord. So they go after the landlord, and they get the landlord in a room and say, okay, well, if you don't evict these people, we're going to charge you with money laundering and conspiracy to sell cannabis, and we're going to lock you up for 25 years. How's that sound? And the landlords evict you. So we got evicted by the landlord, and then we went to tenant court here in California, and we were a little bit smarter than the feds, our attorneys and my brother and the rest of the team. We wrote the lease in such a way that it said in the lease that we were violating federal law.
Yeah.
We said, look, we're violating federal law, but we're not violating state law. We're not violating Oakland law, and you're going to have to deal with that as a landlord.
Yeah.
Well, the judge said, hold on, the lease says she can't evict him. So he threw out the eviction. So then the federal government was in a world of hurt at that point. And it took a number of years and a lot of back and forth, but eventually they dropped the case on us.
Gotcha.
So now we also have a 280E, which is this tax provision case with the feds right now, which is not even worth talking about because it gets into tax law and stuff like that. But but the federal government, they weren't happy with that TV show that we did, and they weren't happy that we got the message out. They weren't happy, more importantly, that people heard the message.
Yeah. How many seasons did it air? Just one?
Just one.
Just one. Okay.
Just one.
How many episodes?
Just 4.
4 episodes.
Yep.
Wow.
just 4 1-hour episodes.
Caused a lot of heat with 4 hours of television.
Yeah, well, and also Discovery Channel got sued by somebody who claimed who claimed that they stole the idea for weed. Yeah, so they weren't happy.
Come on, HBO. I know it was you.
I don't know what it was, man, but they I think what happened was they got a lot more heat for airing the show than they thought, and so they didn't want to do another season.
Yeah.
But a year or two later, they were doing another weed show. So our ratings weren't bad, according to the ratings that we looked up. So, and it was a lot of fun to do. I learned a lot from it, because there's you don't control the editing, and sometimes they make bad decisions.
They make you look a certain way.
Sometimes it's not how they make us look, but how they make cannabis look, or how they make other. There was they would bring people in. They brought a guy in from the East Coast who had never smoked weed in his life because he had been illegal, but he was having some medical issues. So he came out here. We got him a note, and we got him some medicine. The cameras followed him around. We said, look, take this medicine, go for a walk in nature, make sure you got people around you. We gave him the whole instruction manual. And then they went and filmed it, and you could tell the dude was having a good experience, right? But then at the very end, when they interviewed him and they said, are you going to continue to have cannabis in your life after this? He said no. And he tried to portray it as not as positive a thing. Even though you can tell by watching it, he was having a positive experience. So, and I think he was just scared to be on national TV and go back home to Pennsylvania or wherever he was from.
Where he was like, "You like weed?"
Yeah,
yeah.
And so he did it and it was entirely predictable that he would do that. So it was just. Sometimes things get out of your control when you're making a show like that. Yeah. You have to just take the good with the bad, man.
That's crazy. So after that show, so what was your position at Harborside, like by title?
I think at that time I was general manager of all the retail shops, or retail, or maybe operations, director of operations.
Was your brother more marketing in that sector, or had he written his book at this point?
My brother was CEO, man. Okay, he was CEO at this point. He probably called himself executive director because we were still in the nonprofit model.
Yeah.
And I called myself either general manager or director of operations. Yeah, one of those two. But he did a lot of the public facing. He was the public face of the company, and he started a few other. We didn't have there was no laboratory testing labs. We could take the weed, so we had to start our own lab. Steve worked on that while I was running the shop. We had to start a packaging company because we couldn't get the packaging we needed. Yeah. So Steve did that while I ran the shop. So there was some stuff like that where Steve did some a lot of outward-facing work to help support what was happening inside. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I was inside making all the trains run on time.
Yeah. And then sort of, as your time there, was that the be-all, end-all for you? Were you like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life? Or were you, this is a stepping stone to get my other goals achieved?
That's a good question. That answer to that question has evolved over time. But I would say when I was in it, I thought Harborside would be the last company I'd build. I thought I'd be building Harborside, for quite some time. Investors used to come around and say, well, what's your exit plan? I was like, oh, you mean when I die? And they're like, no, your exit. Don't you know what an exit is? And I'm like, no, because that's not how we think.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that I've managed an exit, I learned a lot more about them, and I understand them a lot better now. And so I'm actually excited to work on a whole bunch of new things. There was a time where I didn't think I was going to do anything but Harborside, but now that I'm not with Harborside any longer, and I'm working on building many different things in the industry right now. Yeah. I'm actually having more fun because I don't have to own and operate every single thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of pressure. You know, we had 200. At one point I had, I don't know, almost 300 people reporting to me, or reporting to people that reported to me.
Yeah.
So at one point I had, I think, 10 direct reports. No one should have more than 3 or 4. So it was crazy how all encompassing and obsessive, running that business was. To this day, it's a very demanding business, not unlike restaurants. It's go every day, all day, and that's just the life.
Yeah. And now, is your brother still at Harborside?
His last day was just a few days ago.
So what happened there? Why are you both out? Why, was it I don't want to say amicable, I guess, your choice?
Well, at a certain point, the founders, we had partners, we had other family members, we had a community we had to consider.
Yeah.
And Harborside had, these federal legal cases that cost us, I don't know, at least, tens of millions of dollars. And the only way we could keep growing the business was to bring in investors. For a long time, we didn't have any investors. We just grew the business organically.
Yeah.
Which we prefer, because when things go wrong with investors, you bring in money and the money doesn't do what you say it's going to do.
Yeah.
Things get tricky. So we bought a farm. Well, we didn't buy a farm, but we moved up the supply chain, and whenever you move up the supply chain, there's growing pains, and those growing pains sort of caused us to have to bring money in.
Yeah.
Then it became clear that we were going to have to probably take this company public in the Canadian markets to raise the money we're going to need for the tax case I told you about, and for just to grow, just to compete, because the Prop 64 framework was poorly done in California, and it's really hard to build a profitable cannabis business in California right now. So all of that is a lot more of a complex company. It's no longer a small family business or even a big family business. It's now a complex company with lots of stakeholders, and the original founders and family members it came to a point where it was a good decision for us to exit. So when the company went public, some of us exited then, some of us exited a year ago. I exited a year ago, and now my brother is sort of the last one to exit now.
And then who will own it? Just the investors?
The investors and the shareholders.
Gotcha.
And there's a board of directors that is...
And do you feel that it's left in the right hands? Do you feel like they're pushing the message forward, or do you feel like it's become sort of a business more so than a positive community place?
It is not an activist organization. It is not an ESG organization.
Yeah.
Like it was when Steve and I owned and operated it.
Yeah.
It is too early to tell just how transactional Harborside might become.
Yeah.
I certainly hope it doesn't become a brutally transactional business.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the brand and the name Harborside will be around for a long time. And I wish the team especially the best. They still have a lot of talented people, and that we mentored, and so it's part of being an entrepreneur and a business person is change is constant, and your opportunities shift, and the industry you're in changes and shifts.
Yeah.
And with cannabis, it's especially true. It's also true with restaurants, right? Things move so fast and shift so quickly, and you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to pivot. And now Steve and I are in a pivot, and we've got our nonprofit Last Prisoner Project. We've been working on a couple years, so we're still doing social justice, and we have creative projects. We're still doing our storytelling, and we do consulting work, to keep the lights on for everything. And
now, last Prisoner Project. I know you guys are really big into that. Are you part of the ownership or the committee?
It's a nonprofit organization. Uh-huh. I am chairperson of the board of directors.
Okay.
My brother, ironically enough, can't be on the board of directors because he has a felony conviction.
Okay.
And it's a federal nonprofit status.
Heard that. So, can you tell everyone a little bit about what the organization does?
Yes. LastPrisonerProject.org. People can learn all about us there. We have 3 main missions. 1, get all cannabis prisoners on earth out of prison.
Yes.
Particularly in places where weed is now legal. 2, expunge their records so they can re-enter into society. And 3, help them re-enter into society with housing, job training, and employment.
Yeah.
We try to place as many of our constituents as we can in the legal cannabis industry, those that want to.
Yep.
And we're still working on funding a lot of those programs, but we have a few constituents that we're actively supporting in reentry, and we have gotten a couple people out of prison. There's many more we have not. And there's other groups like the Weldon Project and Cage Free Cannabis. They're doing this too, and they're terrific. And I hope people will support us. And you can write a letter to a prisoner if you don't have money to donate on our website. And it's really, we can't forget about our prisoners, those of us that are in the cannabis trade. And it's really rewarding work. I spend about 20% of my time on it. Basically 1 full day a week I spend on it. And you don't get a lot of attention or credit, but when you help people or spring them from jail, that person and that family will never forget what you've done.
Yeah.
And it's a really good feeling. And, those of us who have been locked up for this, my brother more so than me, but I've taken a few small busts too.
Yeah.
When you've been in a cage for this, it teaches you a lot about what's going on with, criminal justice in the United States.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you doing this with me. It's nice to get to know you a little better, and nice to hear about all the opportunities that you're providing for the prisoners of marijuana. And I hope you guys learned a little bit about how this all started back before you could just walk into a place and buy some legal weed. All right. So this is Sucio Talk signing off. Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Nice to be with you all today.
For sure. And